Hello, this is Dean Phoenix with another Final Fantasy X video, and this time it's a slightly different video. The actual footage that I'm showing is not relevant to the video itself, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But what it is I just wanted to discuss the choices that you have to make in the Final Fantasy endgame. So, Final Fantasy X, I absolutely love the whole game. I especially love the post-game. I think it's one of the most fun Final Fantasy games to do the stat maxing and ultimate gear and everything else. There are also mini-games that will get you the sigils and crests for the celestial weapons, like the Chocobo Catcher game that you're going to see here, and the lightning dodging in a moment. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the endgame strategy, but there are quite a few decisions that you have to make and that you should be making before we actually embark on doing the stat maxing and everything else. There are some things that are always going to be the same in every playthrough, they're just the best way of doing something. But there are other things that you have to make a decision on about how much time you want to put into them, how you want to play the game and everything else. So just as a basic overview, the way that the Final Fantasy X endgame should go, in my opinion, and which is objectively the quickest way of doing it, is to get the airship. And so after you've done the high bridge scene, you can do some of the side quests and get all the optional Aeons, so that's Anima, Yojimbo and the Major Sisters. And then you need to do capturing for all of the areas. You might as well capture 10 of everything because you want to unlock Nemesis so that you can beat Nemesis, and that will also get you the rewards for capturing 1 of all creatures and 5 of all creatures, as well as unlocking Nemesis himself for 10 of all creatures. Then you have One Eye, where you can get the, if you can beat him, which you should be strong enough to do after doing all capturing, you can beat One Eye and get triple AP weapons. You can then customize those and get quick S levels by getting tons of AP using Don Tonberry and the Don Tonberry trick. And then you can max the rest of the stats by being strong enough to beat the species creations in the arena. And then after you've done that, you'll be strong enough to take on the Dark Aeons. So that's the basic overview of how the Final Fantasy X endgame will go. But there are many choices that you have to make, and this is what I want to cover in this video. So first of all, the most important thing is, are you going to defeat the Dark Aeons and are you going to do them properly? Now, if you're just playing the regular game, you can just go through that no problem at all. But if you want to beat the Dark Aeons, you have to decide if you're going to make your characters strong enough and get the correct gear, and you learn the strategies to be able to beat the Dark Aeons in a clean fight. Or you have to decide if you're just going to Zanmato them. Now, if you're going to Zanmato them using Yojimbo's instant kill attack, you just have to save it before each Dark Aeon, chuck a bunch of money at Yojimbo, helps if your compatibility is high. You don't need walkthroughs or strategy for that, it's not playing the game properly. Do it if you want to, that's absolutely fine, but it's just the quick, cheap way of doing it, and if you're not bothered about actually fighting the Dark Aeons properly, you don't need an endgame guide, because all you're going to do is just Zanmato them. So that's absolutely fine. If that's the way you want to go ahead and do it, but that's the first thing you have to decide. If you decide that you're going to try and defeat the Dark Aeons and do the stat maxing and play the end of the game properly so that you can actually get the satisfaction of beating the Dark Aeons correctly, that's your first decision. Are you going to beat them properly, and what kind of stats are you going to be doing to be able to do that? And are you going to be fighting the Major Sisters together? Now, the Dark Major Sisters are a lot harder to fight than when you fight them separately, which you can do, and that's one of the greatest challenges, other than maybe Dark Anima and Penance. Is fighting those 3 together. They're probably the most difficult fight, probably even more difficult than Penance, depending on what strategy you use for Penance. So those are the decisions. Are you going to fight the Dark Aeons properly, and are you going to fight the Major Sisters together? Assuming that you're still with me and that you are going to be fighting the Dark Aeons properly, then you need to have an endgame strategy, and this is what I'm going to be covering in my videos that I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to do a series of post-game videos, and they are going to cover some of the good techniques for capturing, especially with Inside Sin and Omega Ruins, when the tactics can matter and save you a lot of time. And then we'll be moving on to the actual post-game. Now, as you can see here, this is the sphere grid, and I'm just showing here. The most important thing that you have to decide first of all is, are you going to break the HP limit or not? Now, you can easily get 9,999 HP, which is the maximum, without break HP limit. Now, break HP limit lets you go over 4 figures and break into the 10,000 range and above. It's not necessary. You can actually beat all of the Dark Aeons with proper strategy and the correct gear and everything else. You can beat them all with 9,999 HP with correct armors. So if you're going to break the HP limit, it makes some fights a little better. It actually makes 1 or 2 fights just as difficult, possibly slightly more difficult. I'm thinking of Dark Anima, if you actually have break HP limit. But if you love the big numbers and the big stats like I do, now I know that break HP limit is not necessary. I've beat the whole game without it, and I know how much more time it takes to do the game with break HP limit. For reference, the quickest that I've done it without using break HP limit is about 72 hours for doing the whole game and stat maxing and beating all the Dark Aeons legit. It's about 72 hours roughly on my PS3 HD remaster save. Now, when I did it with break HP limit and I did 99,999 HP, so just 1 HP shy of 100,000, it took me just over 100 hours, and that is actually extremely quick for being able to do that. So that was 99,999 HP with effective max stats including 230 luck, and that was just over 100 hours. Now that is, like I say, extremely quickly, but that is the sort of level of grinding that you're looking at. Now, if you're going to use break HP limit, you should use 99,999 HP. So first of all, you shouldn't really do it unless you're using the standard sphere grid. It means that you have to clear the grid out, take out every sphere that is not a +4 in order to maximize your stats. And again, this will be covered in a set of post-game videos, but if you are wanting to break the HP limit and use break HP limit armor, it totally changes the armor you need for a start. You need break HP limit armor, which needs 30 wings to discovery to customize, or you have to get the break HP limit armor drops from the Dark Aeons. And your endgame armor would be break HP limit, ribbon, auto haste and auto regen. Now that's quite different from the 9,999 HP armors, which would be auto phoenix, auto protect, and ribbon or stoneproof, and then auto haste. So auto protect and auto phoenix are totally different, and if you're going to be putting in the time to break the HP limit, you want to get those different break HP limit armors. So that totally changes how you want to customize the armors, because you don't want to be putting auto phoenix or auto protect on there, and the earlier you make that decision, the earlier in the post game you can plan that out. So for example, you don't want to be deciding halfway through that you do want to do break HP limit after you've already used 99 dark matters to put ribbon on an auto haste, auto protect, auto phoenix armor. If you're going to break the HP limit, you want to make that decision as soon as possible. If you do that, you're also committing to spending a lot of time on the game, which isn't strictly necessary. So you just have to bear that in mind as something that you have to think about going forward. If you're going to do that, if you're going to spend that extra time breaking the HP limit and getting 99,999 HP, then if you're already spending all of that time, you might be more amenable to farming Dark Yojimbo and also to having a higher luck stat. So those are a couple of the other things that we're going to discuss. One of the key things you need to discover as well, decide as well, after you know if you're going to break the HP limit or not, is which of the items and sigils that you have got to this point in the game, and also which ones you can get and are willing to actually spend the time getting. So for example, if you didn't pick up the Sun Crest after fighting Eulaleska, it will now be guarded by Dark Bahamut, and that is a massive difference because it means that you can't power up Tidus's Khalidbolg Celestial Weapon, and so you may have to think about other characters instead of Tidus for your endgame party. If you didn't get the Besaid or Macalania treasures in the temples, the Destruction Sphere treasures, then those temples will also be guarded. Besaid will be guarded by Dark Valfor, and Macalania will be guarded by Dark Shiva. Now whilst they're not as strong as Dark Bahamut, they will still be a pretty severe block. So unless you're going to Zanmato then, which again wastes the challenge of being able to fight them properly, that would stop you from being able to get Anima. And if you can't get Anima, you cannot get the Major Sisters, and that also prevents you from getting Yuna's Celestial Weapon. So if you are missing either the Besaid or Macalania treasures, then you will have to consider Zanmato in the Dark Aeons, Shiva or Valfor, in order to be able to use Yuna, Anima and the Major Sisters. And that's a bit of a blow because again, the Anima and the Major Sisters are extremely powerful and can be more powerful than your characters early on before you start stat maxing. So they can actually be useful for beating some of the arena creations. So again, depending on which of those you have, the Sun Crest and the Treasures, may affect whether you can use Tidus or Yuna. The minigames like Catch a Chocobo and the lightning dodging, the butterfly dodging game in Macalania, and Blitzball all affect the celestial weapons that you'll be able to get as well. So if you cannot do the Catch a Chocobo or the lightning dodging, which I would perfectly understand, then that stops you from being able to power up Tidus's or Lulu's weapon. Lulu's not that big a loss because her overdrive is bad and she has slowish animations, so although her celestial weapon is good, if you don't get it, she's not a big loss. She wouldn't really be in most endgame parties anyway. But the usual endgame party would be, the most powerful one is, if you're doing 9,999 HP, is Riku, Tidus and Wakka, because they have the best overdrives. Particularly Riku, her mix is absolutely crucial. But if you're not able to get Caloid Bowl powered up, or if you do not have the patience to do Blitzball and power up Wakka's World Champion, then you may want to go with another endgame party, so something along the lines of Auron and Riku, because their celestial weapons are very easy to get, and then maybe Kimahri or somebody else. But again, Kimahri's depends on being able to do the butterfly catching game. So you have to decide which of these mini games you want to be able to do for the sigils and which ones you absolutely cannot do without. Catch a Chocobo is annoying, but if you can do it, then it is good to have Tidus's Caloid powered up. He's a very good character. And Blitzball, although it is tedious, you can do with resetting and using the correct players, with resetting the stats and everything to play the least games possible. You can do all of Blitzball in about 3.5 to 4 hours roughly. 4 hours is quite low, so it's normally about 4 to 5 hours. So although that takes patience, there's nothing ever stopping you doing it. So there's never any Dark Aeon in the way, there's nothing ever stopping you being able to get Wakkas. So if it worst comes to worst, and you can't do Catch a Chocobo or lightning dodging, and if you can't do butterfly catching for Kimahri's weapon, and Yuna is blocked because of the Besaid and Macalania treasures, one of those, you will always be able to fall back on a team of Riku, Auron and Wakka, and their minigames for their Celestials are never blocked off and easy to do. They just take a bit of patience at best. So that's another set of decisions that you have to think about. Another thing that you have to consider is the ribbon armor. Now, for the Dark Aeons, a lot of their attacks will inflict some really nasty statuses all at once, particularly with attacks like Anima and also Dark Yojimbo and the Major Sisters. They all have really nasty status effects, and obviously there will also be Dark Bahamut, who can inflict a metric ton of damage as well, and will also have Stone, so Petrify, as part of his impulse counterattack. So ribbon is extremely useful. Now you get one ribbon for free in effect, because after you catch 5 of every monster you will get 99 Dark Matters. So you should always use those 99 Dark Matters to customize a particular ribbon on an armor, so either Riku or Tidus's. And again, this is where it matters, because you want to have decided if you're doing break HP limit, so you would always have ribbon and auto haste on either Tidus or Riku's armor, but then you need to decide if you're doing break HP limit, because it depends whether you put the last 2 abilities as break HP limit and auto regen, or alternatively auto phoenix and auto protect. Now if you want more than one character to have ribbon, which is very useful, it does take a lot of grinding. So if you're going to do that, that's another decision you have to make. If you want to get extra ribbon armors, you can either try and soft reset and kill a few of the earlier Dark Aeons like Ifrit or Dark Valfor, and kill them a few times and soft reset until you get a ribbon armor. But the chances of getting particularly a ribbon 4-slot armor with 3 free slots are very low. Now the better way of doing it is farming Dark Yojimbo. There's 2 reasons for that. One, you fight him multiple times, so he drops multiple ribbon armors. You have a higher chance of getting it, even though the chances still aren't good. And he is repeatable, so you can do that as many times as you want. But also his normal drop is a Dark Matter, so if you overkill him every time, that's 2 Dark Matters per fight. Now if you're going to do that, you need to be strong enough to kill Dark Yojimbo and actually farm him and repeat that fight. So that's another thing you have to think about. Are you going to get to the stage where you're going to farm Dark Yojimbo? And if so, then you really need enough luck to be able to hit him either consistently or actually 100% of the time. And that brings me on to my next thing. So after you've decided how many ribbon armors you want or things like that, the thing that you have to decide for the Dark Aeons is what luck stat you want to reach. Now luck stat is extremely difficult because you get the fortune spheres from Greater Sphere, which isn't too bad, you can do that relatively quickly. But instead of being able to just get these spheres like mana spheres and power spheres to activate the actual spheres on the grid, you need fortune spheres, and fortune spheres require beating Earth Eater. The fastest way of beating him is about a minute and 5, minute and 10 seconds per fight with Waka, or there is a method with Tidus that is a minute and 35 seconds. Now that still is a massive grind depending on how many fortune spheres you need, because you need at least, say, if you want to get a certain level of luck, you have to get the fortune spheres to activate those luck spheres on the grid for every character. So your options for luck are, you either want 35 luck, which is the bare minimum for beating the Dark Aeons, so that will let you hit Penance's arms with 5 aims. So if you use Hyper Null All with Riku, that is the actual minimum, 35 luck per character, and that wouldn't take very long to farm at all. The next sort of benchmark up is 85 luck, so instead of always having to have 5 aims up with the characters to be able to hit Penance's arms and Dark Anima, with 85 luck you'll always be able to hit them. Now this is a good benchmark because it means that you don't have to worry about people dying in the Dark Anima fight, you don't have to reapply aim and things like that. So 85 luck is the next reasonable step. 114 is the next benchmark, and that is to allow you to always hit Dark Yojimbo regardless of your actual accuracy, because he has no evasion. And if you have that much luck with 255 accuracy, you'll always be able to hit Dark Sandy of the Dark Major Sisters. Now this is probably my preferred level of luck. The difference there of 29 luck is about 7 fortune spheres per character, which would be 28 luck, and 7 fortune spheres at just over a minute a fight. It's not really that much longer. Even if you did that for all 7 characters, that would probably take you about an hour and 20 minutes or so, and that's not a lot in a game where you're talking about 100 hours for the grind. So I would say 114 luck is a decent amount. The last thing is that the actual max stats in the game technically is to have 230 luck, which allows you to hit Dark Mindy, but it is solely for hitting Dark Mindy. She's the only one, and that is 100, almost over 100 luck per character that you need, so that's over 25 fortune spheres per character, so that's a massive amount of grinding. And the thing is, there is no practical reason for doing it. You cannot beat the Dark Major Sisters together. Even quick hitting Mindy with first strike on all 3 characters, you do not have enough time to kill her before they get their Delta attack, and if you're getting to the stage where they're using Delta attack, it's already too late. You have to block it with an Aeon, or you have to kill one of them beforehand, which you can only do with magic, so there is no reason of really having 230 luck. So that being the case, you have to think about how much luck you want, and I would say probably stop at 114. So I hope you enjoyed, and please like and subscribe for more videos as we go into the post-game section.